The World Health Organization released the following. Don't panic, bacon lovers. Talking about the report on cancer, processed meats. Now, does that mean there should be a total pork ban? The WHO research linking some meats to cancer. Well, this, of course, has bothered Paulie since last night. And he thinks it's bothering America and the red, white, and blue. So he couldn't find anybody in the United States who would refute this. So he reached out to Canada, the University of Alberta. Tim Caulfield, the health professor at the University of Alberta, kind enough to join us. What did that release yesterday mean to you, Tim?
Well, it means to me the same boring thing that we've heard from our grandmother. We shouldn't panic. It's really about moderation. So look, the WHO did come to a conclusion. Basically, it wasn't really a study. What they did is they gathered all the evidence they could about meat, whether it's good for you, whether it's bad for you, and they came to the conclusion that, look, eating processed meat probably does increase your risk of cancer, of getting colorectal cancer, about 17%. Now, that sounds scary, but that's relative risk. So you got to weigh it against your chance of 17% over the risk that you already have. So it's not a huge increase, but I think it's a message that probably processed meat shouldn't be our go-to meat now. But we don't need to shy away from bacon altogether.
Okay, but everything's in moderation, though, isn't it?
That's right, and I think that that's why I say that this is really confirming what we already know. Look, how many people ate bacon because they thought it was good for them? Right? I think people realize that bacon's probably not the healthiest food choice. But this study does kind of emphasize that it's associated with cancer now, and they also came to a softer conclusion about red meat more generally. That eating about 100 grams or 4 ounces a day also increases your risk. That's a probable increase. And so, I mean, this is kind of confirming what we already know, but, we shouldn't panic. We don't have to cut it out of our diets. Just, that, again, emphasizing that message of moderation.
Well, I saw the CNN headline, processed meats causes cancer. And I went, oh, okay, wow. That's that kind of jumped out at me.
Yeah, I know. There's been a lot of wild headlines, bacon kills and things like that. So I think that this goes into that same category of all those nutrition studies that we hear. Coffee's good for you, coffee's bad for you. Red wine, decreases cancer risk. Red wine increases cancer risk. Look, doing nutrition research is really, really tough, and that's why we get these kind of conflicting stories. And we're usually talking about a slight increase in risk, or also that goes for benefit too. There's no superfoods out there. Slight benefit risk. Look, it's all. I always say to people, it comes down to the same message. You eat sensibly, lots of fruits and vegetables, lots of whole grains, healthy proteins, and even a little bit of bacon if you like bacon.
But how do you define processed meats?
So that's a good question because the WHO actually defines it quite broadly. I know a lot of people saw this study and they thought it just meant the highly processed stuff that you buy at the supermarket, hot dogs and things like that. But they actually defined it quite broadly. Anything that has a preservative in it, obviously, but also things with salt and pepper. Anything that's really kind of been processed in any way. So it was quite a broad definition. I suspect the more highly processed stuff like hot dogs, the cancer risk is probably higher, but look, they're throwing everything in that basket.
The World Health Organization said cured and processed meats are in the same category as asbestos, alcohol, arsenic, and tobacco. That's a big category here, Tim.
It is a big category, and I think that's where I get a little worried about, the alarmist approach to this. Look, this is not like smoking. This is not like eating asbestos or something like that. The WHO has a lot of things on that list. Smoking, the increase in risk is huge, right? If you smoke, you are about a 50% chance that it's going to kill you, right? So we're not talking about that kind of risk. Again, it's a significant risk on top of a relatively low risk that we're going to get the disease. So let me put that in concrete terms. The chance of getting colorectal cancer over your lifetime, depending on how you count it, is somewhere between 3 to 5%. So it's a 17% increase on top of that. So, it's not good news, but we have to keep it in perspective.
Because that probably bumps it up to 5 to 7%, right? 5% maybe?
Yeah, if that, and even if you think of it that way, because there's different ways to count it. Being diagnosed with colorectal is different from dying from it. For example, being diagnosed over the last 5 to 10 years is different from having a diagnosis over a lifetime. So there's different ways to count it, but we have to remember not to mix up relative and absolute risk.
Did you write a book with Gwyneth Paltrow in the title?
I did. Is Gwyneth Paltrow wrong about everything? I think Gwyneth would love this study.
Wait, how do you summarize that, the Gwyneth Paltrow book?
So the book was really about popular culture, and I look at a lot of things exactly like this, the food myths that popular culture riff on, right? And Gwyneth is great at it, everything from vaginal steams, right, to using an infrared sauna to avoid the flu. No and no, by the way, if you look at the evidence. But yeah, I just think I'm fascinated the way that science is presented to the general public, particularly around health and food and diet and exercise. There's so much bunk out there and so much confusion.
Is Gwyneth Paltrow crazy?
I don't think she's crazy, but she definitely has some crazy ideas about health.
Have you talked to her?
I haven't had the opportunity to talk with Gwyneth. I'd love to sit down, have a green tea with her, and talk science.
Well, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it, Tim.
Oh, my pleasure, Dan.
All right. Health professor at the University of Alberta.